Hello and welcome to coverage of the World Magic Cup. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. 73 Crunchy started this thing out, Luis. We're down to 2. We've got Belgium versus Greece. We're going to be playing an entire round here. You can see 3 separate matches going. The team that wins 2 of those matches is going to be our champions. We're going to start off on our back table. This is Jerome Bastonia playing Goryo's Vengeance. On the other side of the table, it's going to be Bill Chronopoulos on Dredge. Can you walk us through what these decks are trying to do? Before you do that, actually, Luis, hold on one second. Let's meet the teams.
Pascal Vieren.
Branko Nering.
Peter Vieren.
Jerome Bastogne.
Go Belgium!
Νίκος Καπώνης.
Πέτρος Διώτης.
Παναγιώτης Παπαδόπουλος.
Μπιλ Χρονόπουλος.
And welcome back. Great stuff. I love watching those videos. You can get a chance to see a little bit of the personality from our finalists. As I was saying earlier, Luis, we've got Goryo's Vengeance versus Dredge in the hands of Jerome Bastonia and Bill Chronopoulos to kick things off here. Can you give us a high-level view of what these decks are trying to do?
So we've seen the Goryo's Vengeance deck go off a few times. It's got a couple different ways to do that. One is Goryo's Vengeance out of Griselbrand that it discarded due to something like Faithless Looting. The other is to use Through the Breach, get to 5 mana, just cast Through the Breach and put Griselbrand into play. Either way, you end up with a Griselbrand on the board. You draw a bunch of cards, and this is the way it starts, by the way. There's a Faithless Looting. Is there a Goryo's Vengeance? And once you do that, you can use Nourishing Shoal plus World Spine Worm to gain life and keep drawing cards with Griselbrand. The end result of all this, you get Borborygmos and Rage into play, and you throw a lot of lands at your opponent. So it's a convoluted way to get there, but get there it does.
Now, what about on the other side of the battlefield, Bill Chronopoulos with his Dredge deck?
So what he's trying to do is also get cards into his graveyard, but this time it's cards that have Dredge. So Golgari Grave Troll, Stinkweed Imp, Dark Blast, that kind of thing. And he uses cards like Faithless Looting and Cathartic Reunion and Insolent Neonate to draw extra cards. What he's trying to dredge are Prized Amalgams, Bloodghasts, and Narcomoebas, at which point he assembles an army of attackers out of nowhere.
Another copy of Faithless Looting here for Jerome. Jerome's a bit of a specialist with this deck, by the way. We'll note here that Pascal Vieren, that's of course the brother of Peter Vieren, the captain from Belgium, is in the coach seat for this round, even though he's got more Pro Tour and high-level Magic experience than Jerome does, but they actually elected to have Jerome go ahead and play here.
And I think that is because of what you just said. Jerome is an expert with this deck, and it is generally a good idea to let the kind of modern specialists, which a lot of teams seem to have one, partially because the World Magic Cup qualifiers were modern, or some of them were. So you end up with players who've been playing a deck for sometimes over a year, even longer, and you should let them play the deck because they've learned not only the big picture of the deck's plan, what it's supposed to do, but also all these like little subtle tricks that you don't really pick those up until your 200th game with a deck.
Yeah. Not so secret weapons at this point. A lot of the teams kind of felt like they had their...
They're just weapons now.
They're just outright weapons. That's right.
So taking a look at Bill's hand, he didn't have the turn on Faithless Looting, but he has Cathartic Reunion here, and as we've seen many times over the course of this tournament, it's very effective if you get to discard your Stinkweed Imp and your Life from the Loam or Dakmor Salvage in this case. Actually, he drew a Golgari Grave Troll, even better. So Bill's going to get to, if he'd like, discard 2 Dredgers as a cost and then draw 3, dredging at least 11 cards, and if he hits a Dredger in those 11 cards, he gets to dredge even more.
Yeah, this is really one of the key interactions that you're going to see here with this deck is Cathartic Reunion.
And in this case, Bill chose to discard Prized Amalgam instead of the second Dredger. The payoff is higher because if you hit a Narcomoeba,
a Narcomoeba,
then you get to get it back. And then the downside is if you don't hit a Dredger on your first dredge, you stop and you miss dredges. But he hit a Golgari Grave Troll and then
Stinkweed Imp on that last card.
So Narcomoeba is the card that Bill wants to see.
And there's a Narcomoeba, right as you say it, Luis.
Everything is coming up Bill here as he is able to get 2 Prized Amalgams onto the battlefield on turn 2 alongside that Narcomoeba with a Bloodghast waiting in the wings.
Wow, gives you an idea of the explosive starts that this deck can have. And yeah, when you look at them individually, 1/1 flyer, a couple of 3/3s with no abilities once they're on the battlefield, it doesn't look that great, but we're talking about turn 2 here. That's a lot of power and toughness out on the battlefield already. Night's Whisper now for Jerome. Looking to hit those land drops, it seems.
And so now Jerome is really just looking for Goryo's Vengeance. He was looking for that the whole time. He actually has Through the Breach in hand, and has a World Spine Worm, which he could set up. So in which case he would like a Desperate Ritual or a Simian Spirit Guide.
Luis, I've already got a game update for you here.
I mean, it's turn 3. Why wouldn't you have one?
Branko Nerink has already defeated Petros Tziotis in their first game. That's on our middle table. Naya Byrne versus Obzon. Naya Byrne dispatching of Obzon in game 1 and moving the Belgian team one game closer to the championship here.
So Bill is setting up for a turn 4 kill here. He did dredge a Scourge Devil into his graveyard. So if he's able, he could unearth that and attack right now with the 2 prized amalgams and the Narcomoeba, he could, plus the Scourge Devil itself. So one of the Narcomoebas, of course, is summoning 6. So that would be 14 damage right away. And that sets up for him having lethal next turn. An advantage of doing that is it reduces Jerome's life total sufficiently such that even if Jerome is able to get a Gristlebrand into play, he might not be able to go off.
Limits how many times he gets to draw cards. I would not be surprised to see Bill do that here. In game 1, he has really nothing to fear from Goryo's Vengeance deck, right, as far as disrupting his plan.
No, the Goryo's Vengeance deck has too many combos that it needs to enable to really have a single disruptive slot.
Bloodgas is going to come back onto the battlefield from the graveyard after the land.
And conveniently for Bill, he's at 16, so even a Through the Breached World Spine Worm won't kill him, especially with that Narcomoeba back.
That's really important.
It does mean that he's not in danger of dying to that particular line of play.
All right, here we go. Hit you for 14.
So it's going to put Jerome down to 4 here.
So that's 12, 14, right?
4, 8, 12, 13, 14. Put you to 4. The Scourge Devil does not get to stick around since it was unearthed.
And so next turn, Bill is threatening 10 points of damage. Jerome is able to gain 11 off Nourishing Soul, so Bill's going to be a few points short, but he's got Conflagrate in his graveyard, which will still finish Jerome off through that Nourishing Soul unless Jerome is able to do something else.
That is a lot of damage that this Dredge deck has been able to compile, and sitting there with 7 cards in hand still, even after all that.
Also, it's not clear if Jerome is going to be able to even combo off.
Three mana here from Jerome.
If he's flashing back Faithless Looting, that is going to put him in a tough spot here.
That is exactly what he's doing, Luis. Draw 2, discard 2. He found a Goryo's Vengeance finally, but
that is what he was looking for.
Not have the mana, right? Not this turn.
No Simian Spirit Guide appears to be on the horizon, so that means that Jerome, even though he can go up to 15 with this Nourishing Shoal, Bill gets to attack for 10 and can conflict for like 7 more, 8 more. I mean, he's got a ton of cards in hand. It looks like 7, then he's going to draw up to 8.
What turn is this? This is going to turn 4?
It's a turn 4 kill.
Through 31 life?
That's a lot of damage.
That is impressive. Another match update, game update here. Panagiotis Papadopoulos with Infect against Peter Viren, also on Infect, it should be noted, has won his first game for Team Greece. Looks like Bill's going to stock the coffers even further here with a life from the loam.
Yeah, I mean, that is the play you want to make beforehand. It does actually add damage to your Conflagrate, though.
And it gets you another Bloodgas with haste, too.
Yeah, getting a little bit more damage here.
Now, is Bill going to go... It looks like he's going to go for the Conflagrate first. Is he just going to do it all? Yeah, just going to dump it in. 9 damage. So this forces the issue. Jerome must now respond. He's going to gain 11, go to 15, take 9, and face down lethal anyway. So Bill Chronopoulos wins his first game. So just to give you a snapshot here, Bill Chronopoulos and Panagiotis Papadopoulos have both won their games for Team Greece, while Branko Nerink, he ended up winning his game for Team Belgium. We'll be back right after these messages.
Play for your chance to win sweet prizes at the Standard Showdown. Sleeve up your biggest, baddest, most busted deck and throw down at a participating local game store. 4 weeks only, every Saturday from November 26th through December 17th. Find tournaments near you at magic.wizards.com/Standard Showdown.
Kaladesh is now available on Magic Duels. Build endless deck combinations with more than 1,000 unique cards. Play through hours of story with 50 campaign missions. Play Magic Duels free today on Xbox One, Steam, iPad, and iPhone.
And welcome back to the feature match area here in Rotterdam. I'm Marshall Sutcliffe in the booth with Luis Scott Vargas. We're bringing you coverage of the finals of the World Magic Cup. 73 countries enter the competition and only 2 remain. Greece versus Belgium. Right now we finished the first round of games here for our 3 matches, with 2 of them going to Greece, 1 of them going to Belgium. And that means that we're ready to start game number 2 here as players can get underway. We've got Branko Nairink. He's on the left-hand side of your screen with Naya Byrne. He's playing against Petros Tsiotis. He's on Abzan.
Petros not on very many cards either.
Ooh, this is a nice one here for Petros. He's going to use Collective Brutality to take down a Wild Nacatl. Well, it looks like it's just a 1/1 right now.
The Carpeline Gorge to thank for that. And then
shields were down.
The other mode or escalate of the Collective Brutality, discarding a Lingering Souls and then forcing the discard of either a Path or a Searing Blaze. If you're playing as Lingering Souls, Searing Blaze seems like a more threatening card.
You mentioned that Petros looked like he was a little light on cards. That's true. He was mulliganing to 5 here this game. He finds himself down a game to Branko.
Got some 2 graveyard action going on here. Since the Searing Blaze and the Nacatl presumably are in the same place.
Right, it didn't get exiled, right? So it should be in the yard. We'll get that moved over in a moment. But for the moment, let's see what Branko wants to do. He needs to start to mount an offensive. He had a Wild Nacatl that he was planning to lean on. You can see he's got a Monastery Swiftspear in his hand as well. There's Eidolon of the Great Revel as well.
And a second, he looks like he has a second Wild Nacatl, so...
Well, a lot of options then for him, especially depending on his land scenario. He's going to crack an Arid Mesa here and go get a Sacred Foundry.
The dreaded triple 1-drop start against a mulligan to 5 is going to be tough.
Right, and now that Wild Nacatl's charged up, and on top of it, the Monastery Swiftspear's in the red zone immediately thanks to haste. So Petros, even though he did a good job of taking care of the one threat from last turn, is already under siege once again, though. He knows he has at least something to do with his mana thanks to discarding the Lingering Souls. He's also drawn a land, though it looks like he also had another land in his hand as well.
Yeah, so Petros is on a Path to Exile as his last remaining spell. He can flashback Lingering Souls here, and then Path, more likely than a Nacatl than the Swiftspear, one of the two. And not die immediately, but he's going to have a hard time against Eidolon plus Branko having a path for whatever Petros' first good creature is. Even though discarding Lingering Souls is generally what you want to do to a Collective Brutality, as it turns out, Pedro's drawing additional lands means I think he would have been happy just keeping it in his hand.
Yeah,
At the time, it made a lot of sense what he did.
Yeah, I mean, he did have a land in his hand, so he could have said, all right, well, next turn I'm just casting Lingering Souls no matter what. This does give him some flexibility, though, as far as using that Path to Exile. That's what he gains here. But if he runs out of gas, he could find himself a little sad to not have the extra 2 Flying Spirit tokens from that Lingering Souls. Take a look at the team aspect here for the World Magic Cup. That's right, we are playing a team event. There's actually 4 players on each team. One of them is in the coach seat for each round. The other 3 are playing individual matches, though you can help.
Yeah.
The coach can move around as they see fit and offer advice. This is Path to Exile hitting the Wild Nacatl, as you predicted, Luis. And even if the other players aren't actively playing a match, for example, we'll often hold a match so that, of course, we don't want to miss anything for coverage for you at home who have been so kind to join us. We want to make sure we show you everything that happens. And that means that the players can even bump over and lean over the shoulder and offer advice here and there.
Wheel their chair over if they're the captain.
It depends, yeah. All right, so Eidolon of the Great Revel could be a major pain for Petros, though he did just find a Maelstrom Pulse.
And despite Petros being down cards intrinsically because he mulliganed, I don't think this is going that badly. If he does something like Maelstrom Pulse the Eidolon, you notice the Monastery of Sisera didn't attack last turn.
That's right.
Bronco did not have a spell to play, so it was just a 1/2, and he's feared a double block of the spirits. If he, once again, doesn't draw a spell, then he's in a position where he could attack, and if it gets double blocked, he can path 1 spirit, essentially trading a path for both spirits. But then both players are on empty, and Petros is still at 18. The burn deck hasn't actually cast any burn spells.
Yeah, Petros would get a land out of the deal potentially, though I do see he has 2 basic lands on the battlefield already. But even then, he should be the one to be able to use up more mana. Bronco's going to point at the Eidolon, signaling that he does remember the trigger. That means that Petros is going to take 2 for the privilege of casting that. And Petros looking forward and saying, look, this isn't going to last forever. I may as well start attacking. He presumed that he wasn't going to have a clean block here anyway.
Yeah, this is an aggressive line by Petros.
He's going to race. I mean, he left the Eidolon on the battlefield.
He needs some siege runners. That's what he needs.
Yes. That is his plan. One thing that Petros has certainly noticed here, or noted here, I should say, is that the Naya Burn player, basically every card in their deck triggers that Eidolon as well. And so he's like, look, we'll just race that. And I got to say, even though he didn't find the Siege Rhino that he wanted, Shambling Vent,
that's going to force
thumbs up.
Going to force the use of Path from Bronco. There's no way you could let Obzon gain 2 life in this kind of situation.
Mm-hmm. Here's Goblin Guide, though, from Bronco. And that means that Petros may be able to start digging his way out of this, maybe get some lands off the top of his library and get to some action. Yeah, he pointed at it. Here we go. All right, another land, and it's even a Shambling Vent.
Yeah, that was a great reveal. Petros is actually clawing his way back in. He's now up 1, he's not down 2 cards anymore because he got a free card off Goblin Guide. He kind of got a card off of the Lingering Souls flashback. Drawing Thoughts, he's not really where you want to be.
Not where he wants, right? It's really interesting because if he does play it, he's going to lose 4 life, but he will take the Path to Exile.
So he gets to...
and then fire up the Shambling Vent.
He gets to very painfully take Path and...
For effectively 2 life here,
and gain 2 life back by attacking with Shambling Vent.
It does feel risky, though. Also, if he hasn't seen his hand at all, Bronco is holding 3 cards with 3 mana. Going down to 6 against the Lightning Bolt deck is pretty scary too. Could just lose on the spot.
Another reason not to Thoughtseize to go for the Shambling Vent is that you've done a second Shambling Vent. If your first one gets passed, you can still activate the second, and you're not going to be able to activate 2 in the same turn anyway.
Petros trying to convince that Eidolon of the Great Revel to turn on its master.
Doing a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, not too bad, though. Bronco may be able to assemble a significant amount of damage here. He just drew a Lava Spike for the turn, though he doesn't have any other burn spells in hand right now. The team from Belgium, very stacked. They crushed day 1 of the tournament. A lot of Pro Tour experience on the team. I mean, they're not stacked with Hall of Famers or something. Was that a Siege Rhino I just saw?
That is the way that Petros gets back into this game. And the fact that Bronco didn't attack last year is already a great sign. And playing Siege Rhino doesn't trigger Eidolon, drains Bronco down to 8. Petros goes to 13. He then, Past Exile does take out the Siege Rhino, dropping Bronco to 6. But Petros still in good shape. He could also Thoughtseize first, but again, I think casting Thoughtseize into Eidolon on a Great Revel is something that should be avoided at just about all costs. And Petros seems to be content leaving the spirits back to potentially trade with something like Goblin Guide. Or Eidolon if the Eidolon comes over.
Nyrink's up a game, having won the first game. So a lot of pressure on Petros from his team from Greece to pick up a win here and force a game 3 and make it interesting at least. In the meantime, they're running the numbers. And again, I'm really impressed by the way that Petros has taken the line of, okay, you want to play Eidolon of the Great Revel? Well, it hurts you too. And even though I'm on a mulligan to 5, I have cards like Siege Rhino and Shambling Vent, and I've got a couple of nice little attackers here. The big decision point, of course, was when he played the Maelstrom Pulse. And which creature do you want to kill? He decided to kill the Swift Spear.
Left Eidolon in play, which since then has dealt no damage to Petros in terms of its trigger.
That's right, and it just dealt 2 more damage to Bronco, bringing him to 4.
Dealt 4 damage to Bronco, it looks like.
Path to Exile kills the Siege Rhino. Oh, there was another basic land there for Petros.
And Bronco's going to be able to attack for 4 this turn. That could drop Petros to 9, but he has to fear the Shambling Vents on the other side. Also, Eidolon at 4, Bronco gets to cast 1 more spell this game.
Right. That Lava Spike in his hand looking miserable at this point. And he's got a lot of cards like that in his deck. A land off the top, even worse.
So now Bronco actually needs to leave blockers back for Shambling Vent.
Yeah, he can't even try to raise.
And he's going to die in the air to the Flyers. He could also, one advantage of blocking with Eidolon is Eidolon off the table means that Bronco can then start casting spells. And Petros could actually look at that and think, maybe I just don't even attack with Shambling Vent. I don't want to let you chump block.
I bet he doesn't.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because if you can hit Bronco down to 2,
what is he going to do?
Locked out of casting spells.
Yeah, he can't cast any spells and he's dead to what's in the air. Really great play here from the Greek teams. In they go. And Bronco's at 2. He just cannot cast another spell for the duration of the game, and he's facing 2 lethal threats with his opponent at 11. And that's going to do it for game number 2. Petros Tsiottis with a nice line, unorthodox, but it certainly worked for him. He's going to even things up on a mulligan to 5, no less. Well done. All right, well, we haven't had to see this in a little while, though. I've seen a few of these over the course of the tournament. An Infect Mirror match. This is 2 of the more popular decks chosen, well, in Modern in general and also here at the World Magic Cup. So they do sometimes face off, and that's what we have here.
Infect Mirror, characterized by Erase, certainly, as both players very capable of attacking past each other and having way more protection spells than the other player has ways to remove them. But there is some disruption, so you know, timing your spells is still very important.
Okay, we've got a Gitaxian Probe to take a look at what the other player's working with. Those of you who follow high-level Magic for the last few years will remember the last time that we saw Greece in the finals, 2014 World Magic Cup. They played against Denmark, and they were so close before, as it's known now, the Dane Blast heard around the world came off the top of the library for Simon Nielsen and ultimately locked things up for the team from Denmark. Really heartbreaking loss for the team from Greece, and they've got 1 game win apiece on their side versus just 1 game win for Team Belgium. They are moving ever closer to getting this World Magic Cup back. And I can tell you as well, one of the players from that team is on this team. Bill Chronopoulos was sitting right there behind his teammate. That was Panayotis Savidis at the time. As they took that loss. They did so gracefully, but it stung.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's, quite the honor to be given the chance to play the finals to try to win it for your country. And then when you lose it, I mean, it's tough. You don't know if you're going to get back there. You don't know if you're going to have another shot. And Bill Chronopoulos is lucky enough that he actually does.
Yeah. God, I'm sure he remembers that moment. He'd love to replace that memory with one today of them winning instead. But they have a really tough opponent. I have to say, one of the better teams in the field, Team Belgium. The Vieren brothers, both with Pro Tour experience. In fact, I was chatting with Pascal Luis, and he was telling me that the last Pro Tour he played in, he since started a family and such, I believe, so hasn't been playing as much high-level Magic, but it was actually Pro Tour San Diego in 2010, which you might remember.
I do. That was some time ago, but actually lost to one of the other commentators at this weekend, Simon Gertzen.
Yeah, you lost to Simon in the top 8, but before doing that, for those that don't know, Luis actually won every single round of Swiss. You went 16-0 in the Swiss portion, and also of note here, Pascal, he was one of your wins.
So you told me.
He said he helped.
I will admit I did not remember the round I played against him.
Yeah, he said it was actually pretty late in the tournament, maybe around 12 or 13. He ended up finishing top 32 there. Okay, here's a big turn now for Panayotis. Look at this triple mutagenic growth with the Might of Old Krosa, and he gets the job done. Jeez, Panayotis Papadopoulos. I tried to have just one little chat about the teams, and he just wins the game out of nowhere.
He was too busy mutagenic growthing his Glistener off. Turn 2 kill.
Wow. Okay. So you know what that means? That's 2-0. And also he defeated really the best player on the Belgium team. Peter Vieren is the most experienced by a lot on that team. He's also the team captain, and he just dispatched him in 2 quick games. Mutagenic growth, mutagenic growth, mutagenic growth. But wait, there's more. Might of Old Krosa to get the job done. Now that's Bill Chronopoulos. We just had a chat about him. You can see he's wearing his medal there. He is the national champion for Greece, and now he is in an absolutely unbelievable position, Luis. He is in a seat where if he wins this single game of Magic, he will win the World Magic Cup for Greece and avenge that bitter loss to the Danes from a couple of years ago. It's all on Bill Chronopoulos' shoulders. Let's see if he can get the job done, or if Jerome Baston is going to stop him and force more Magic.
Look, if you want a chance at redemption, you've got to be the one to take it. And I think Bill would like nothing more than to be the one playing this match.
Now, Bill did take a little risk here. He mulliganed to 6 and kept a 0 lander, but it looks like he's found his way out of it already. And a Faithless Looting is going to help him keep that rolling. Let's see if this Dredge deck can get the job done for Greece.
So critically, Bill appears to be missing a Dredger, but he's got Faithless Looting and he's got Cathartic Reunion, so he's going to start looking through his deck. He's going to start drawing extra cards. He's would love to draw a Golgari Grave Troll or a Stinkweed Imp, but even if he doesn't, he's still seeing a lot of cards and getting to that point.
Faithless Looting being utilized by both sides of the table here, though, for different purposes. Bill wants to get dredge creatures in his graveyard or some of the payoff cards. For Jerome, it's all about getting targets in there for his Goryo's Vengeance. That's not going to be one of them. World Spine Worm is going to get shuffled back in. That's part of its clause. The card designers from Wizards of the Coast know which ones they're okay with sitting in the graveyard and which ones they're like, no, you're not going to get that one back for 2 mana.
World Spine Worm in the latter group.
Indeed. All right, Faithless Looting number 2 for Bill Chronopoulos. Oh, he found a Stinkweed Imp right off the top, Luis.
All right, that is critical, since that means that next turn we're going to see a pretty big dredge. And actually, there's an Insolent Neonate in Bill's hand, so even this turn we're going to see Stinkweed Imp potentially doing some dredging. we've seen frequently is that the dredge player will sacrifice the insolent Nina at the end of the opposing player's second main phase. And that will allow you to dredge something like Prized Amalgam plus Narcomoeba. Narcomoeba returns, Prized Amalgam returns end of turn.
Bloodghast also hitting the battlefield for Bill with that land drop. And this has gone very well for Bill Chronopoulos. On a mulligan to 6 with a 0 lander, he's hard to ask for much more than this on turn 2.
Well, Jerome has 2 copies of Anger of the Gods, which is a very effective card against Dredge because 3 damage is conveniently enough to hit everything that Dredge gets into play for free, and exiling means it won't be happening again.
Now, we did have a chance earlier in the day to watch Bill play against a deck that he knew had Anger of the Gods, and he played very carefully in that match. So Bill is not somebody who's going to just recklessly run his game plan into one Anger of the Gods and just hope it all works out. He is keenly aware of that interaction of getting all of his creatures exiled and then having nothing going on anymore. Really going to pay a lot of attention, though, to this dredge with the Stinkweed Imp. This is going to dictate a lot of how this game goes. Ooh, all business for Bill Chronopoulos, by the way. He knows the weight of the World Magic Cup is currently on his shoulders. The Belgian team huddled around behind Jerome, but letting him do his thing. Like you said, he's a specialist with this deck. Looks like Pascal Vieren's unleashed the Superman shirt on us here as well.
I like it.
The time is now. They're in the finals. All right. So what does he want to hit here, Luis? We saw he hit another Dredger, another Stinkweed Imp. There was also a Conflagrate.
Prized Amalgam, Narcomoeba, Bloodghast, really high on your list of priorities. A second Dredger, very important as well.
Okay, well, that's the only one that he hit out of that list. And now he's hit land? Land? 5 lands, and Bill just sort of throws his hands up like, really? You get that Stinkweed up back in your hand at least.
Bill can do a lot of dredging this turn with a Cathartic Reunion. But he has to decide how much risk he wants to take in the face of Anger of the Gods, because that sets him up, even if he hits a lot of good cards into Anger.
So what we're looking at there, by the way, was the rest of the Greek team at a different table. They are letting Bill have his space. This is a personal thing, right? Some players really appreciate having a helping hand, and other players say, I just got to play my game, put some faith in me. And the Greek team clearly has a lot of trust in Bill Chronopoulos. And like you said, Luis, lots of dredging happening here. Can you explain to us how this works?
So
it's a little weird.
Cathartic Union has as an additional cost. Okay.
Judge. He dredged 6 cards.
Oh.
Yeah, that's correct.
I'm going to give you a warning about the extra cards. Ask you to be more careful when you judge. This is the last card, so shuffle this into your library. When you scratch, did you put anything on the bottom?
No, top.
Then go ahead and shuffle that into your library.
We're listening to what's going. It looks like he may be over dredged by a card there, Luis.
He hit a 6 card, which would be Grave Troll, not Stinkweed Imp. He then started dredging the other Stinkweed Imp, but the judge ruled that he over dredged the first one, shuffle the last card, which was the Narcomoeba, and then will proceed to dredge the second one.
Okay. So, but anyway, you were saying.
So he discarded the 2 Stinkweed Imps as the cost to cast Cathartic Reunion, and then drew 3 cards after that, so he can then choose to re-dredge them.
Right, which is just weird, right? That is an interaction that you get used to after you see these dredge decks, but it's not something that you see very often. Hey, look, it's a Narcomoeba again. And another Dredger and another Narcomoeba.
And then the third draw of Cathartic Reunion here
is going to be right here with a Golgari Grave Troll. So 6 more cards and another Narcomoeba. There's a Prized Amalgam. He's been waiting to see those and a Bloodghast. So pretty potent here. Maybe not everything, but he's got a lot going on.
Well, this was good for him. This was like what you want, but Jerome does have Anger of the Gods, and that will be cast next turn. Unless Jerome has somehow strung together a win, which his hand looks like it's pretty far away from. Actually, Jerome's picked up another hate card. If we take a look at his hand here, we've got Leyline of the Void, which, you want that in your opening hand. That's a lot better, but you are allowed to hard cast it, and that can have a good effect on the game.
Okay. Now, does Bill have options here as far as what he wants to bring back? Like, he could just bring back everything that it's possible, right? The Bloodghast if he has a land plus the amalgams and stuff. But will he try to hedge?
The way to hedge involves Bloodghast because you can you can play a fetch land like that Bloodstained Mire, and then during your opponent's turn, sacrifice it to bring back your Bloodcast and Amalgams. Narcomoeba you have to bring back right away or not, so you might as well just do that.
Yep.
And once you've done that, Amalgam will come in. That one's not optional. So
Okay.
Bill was kind of forced into doing all this, even though
Well-
he's aware that anger is a drawback.
Yeah, he's not happy about it either, and he's going to lose his board to Anger of the Gods. Now, that will leave him still with a Bloodghast, but that's it.
Yeah, he chose not to bring that Bloodghast back.
Yeah,
So
it's sitting in his yard down there in that middle
the
row.
question is, do you bring that back end of turn? It does let you attack, which is obviously an advantage, but the drawback there is that if he's able to then dredge and mill a Prized Amalgam, he won't have that Bloodghast ready to bring it back. Prized Amalgam needs friends.
And he does have dredge cards in his graveyard here, at least a Stinkweed Imp. There may be a Grave Troll hiding in there somewhere as well. It's hard to see. Okay, so he's going to crack the fetch land, but I am curious. To see if this Bloodghast comes back. No, he's untapping. He's going to dredge Life from Loam.
So now we're on the slightly slower plan. Now that your first wave didn't get there, dredging Loam, not as much of a dredge as Stinkweed Imp, but it does provide you with a better late game because you start loaming back lands. Also, getting back the Mortuary Mire there gives you the option to exile your opponent's graveyard.
Is that a Bajuka Bog
A
right
Bajuka
there?
Bog, rather.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
the reason there is that there is a Gristlebrand lurking in Rome's graveyard, and being able to exile it makes Goryo's Vengeance no longer an out here.
Yeah, you said it earlier, an incredibly shiny Grizzlebrand. It
It
really
is
does
shiny.
stand out from the yard. You can see it back there, too. So the Bajuka Bog does take care of the graveyard. Though, as we look at the hand here from Jerome, he wasn't really getting close to that anyway with a Simian Spirit Guide and Anger of the Gods and a Leyline of the Void in hand.
No, and actually, you got to give
This
some...
hand looks kind of bad.
Well, some thought to using Simian Spirit Guide, playing Leyline of the Void this turn, and then next turn you can Anger of the Gods and hopefully put Bill in a position where he can't really assemble much. The problem with the Leyline is it doesn't exile cards currently in the graveyard, it just
Right.
future ones. So Bill at some point could dredge back or just play a Golgari Grave Troll and just look at all the cards that are currently in his graveyard, which not sure
Yeah.
exactly what that number is, but he's got a lot of cards in his graveyard. It could be substantial.
Yeah.
Jerome also had to be somewhat worried. There's a Scourge Devil. You see it peeking out the bottom of the screen there under a Faithless Looting, which means that next turn could be an attack for 11, even without anything additional. The biggest drawback to playing Anger of the Gods here is that you're not stopping Bill from enacting his plan next turn. He still gets to keep dredging and keep putting cards into play. Whereas Leyline stops future cards, so if you play the Leyline then the Anger, you protect yourself a little bit more at the risk of taking additional damage.
He's going to go for the Leyline. So that Leyline of the Void,
Common cards.
you take a look. If a card would be put into an opponent's graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. But as you noted, Luis, it doesn't actually take care of the cards that have already been put into the yard. That is not a rest in peace. And that means that Jerome Bastonia is going to take some damage this turn. It's up to Bill how much he decides he wants to do. He could just hit for 5, or he could
So
bump it significantly to 11.
I'm counting at least 6 creatures in the graveyard, which means that if Bill starts casting Grave Trolls, he's fairly immune to Anger and puts Jerome on a pretty fast clock.
Wow, yeah, Jerome not really well set up to kill creatures that big, the 6/6s and 7/7s and the like. Did you, Luis, catch if Bill has a land drop to give here? Can he just cast a Grave Troll this
He
turn?
does. He's got a Steam Vents in hand.
Okay,
So those 3 cards are exiled thanks to Leyline.
yes. Yes, that dredge train is no longer going. This is Team Belgium over here, and you can see how nervous they are. Remember, Team Belgium's the one who's
He's also-
down a match here.
He's also got Scourge Devil, so he can attack for 11, play a land, conflagrate. Does he have enough in hand?
It would have to be for an additional
6. He would need 6 cards, and he has to play a land to enable it. So he'd be.
That laugh indicates I'm one short.
Yeah, that's the one short laugh.
No math to substitute to get to that conclusion, but just looked at the look on Bill Chronopoulos' face.
So where that leads him, the loam is going to be exiled. Where that leads him is to doing as much damage as possible to play around Goryo's or Gristlebrand next turn, and having a lethal conflict rate no matter what happens to your creatures in play.
Wow, Bill Chronopoulos so close to winning this thing for Greece. He is looking. Remember, he was the one who was at the table when the Danes beat them 2 years ago.
He has 7 cards in hand.
Got Jerome down to 6 with 7 cards in hand and a conflict rate in his yard. The rest of the team is sitting away from Bill, trusting their captain to get the job done with no help. But they are paying every bit as much of attention as we are and you are at home. Here's a Manamorphose now for Jerome. Is this desperation time for him? Just cycling it, basically?
He's got the Through the Breach, but he has nothing to breach into. Doesn't have a 5th land. The conflict rate, I think, is going to do it.
He's forced to play Anger of the Gods. Bill Chronopoulos says, yeah, okay, no problem. Does another quick count of his hand, untaps, draws his card for the turn, puts Conflict Rate on the table, and his whole hand down, and it's redemption for Greece. They are your World Magic Cup champions. High fives around for the whole team. Congratulations to Team Greece. They are your World Magic Cup champions. What a great story. Bill Chronopoulos, sitting at that table 2 years ago, takes the heartbreaking defeat from the Dane Blast and has marched all the way back to win it for Team Greece. Congratulations. You can breathe a sigh of relief at home, and you, Bill Chronopoulos.
Those are equal parts, jubilation and relief. He's feeling both those things right now.
Oh, you got a big kiss in there, too. This looks like there's trophies and high fives. Oh, man, I need to take a deep breath after that one, Luis. Oh, my goodness. Fantastic stuff. Again, well done to our second place team here, Belgium. They're in the mode where it's like, they're talking about what could we have done differently? Was there anything? But it was not to be for them today. Today was for Greece. And they are your World Magic Cup champions. Whoa. Luis, I got to take a deep breath, man. These intense ones, for us in the booth, it's so I just feel like a ball of tension here. I know it's like that for you at home, but congratulations again to Greece. What an exciting finish.
Yeah, that was amazing. The turn 2 kill with Infect was nice. The Might of Old Croson to triple mutagenic growth on Glistener. I mean, that's the nightmare scenario for anyone playing against Infect, and what better time to have it happen for Greece than in the finals?
No kidding. Absolutely fantastic stuff from both of our teams. Belgium really dominating the tournament from day one, picking up no losses, and then a nearly blemish-free day 2 as they cruised to the finals, but they finally met their match, and it was Greece who took things down. Bill Chronopoulos. Wow, what a story for him. He has to feel so much elation after all of this. Luis, great stuff. Thanks for joining me in the booth, and thank you so much for you guys as well. We're going to be back with more after these messages.
73 countries come in, one remains holding the trophy. It is Greece. Conflagrate for the win. Just words fail, really. I've been joined at the desk by Simon Gertson, Brian David Marshall, and hot out of the booth, Luis Scott Vargas. Luis, let's start with you. What was the final like from where you were surrounded by monitors, so you got to see the rest of the Greek team, the Belgians huddled around the team for that final game?
It was amazing watching Bill Chronopoulos get to play to redeem the fact that his team lost in the finals 2 years ago. And it was even more stark that the rest of his team was at the other table waiting for a potential other match, letting him just play.
Yeah, in a sense, BDM, a team leader who, at the moment of truth, took it upon himself to just play alone for a country. Amazing.
I can't think of a more perfect ending for him and Team Greece. I did an interview with him earlier today, and we talked about that moment because, we always talk about the Dune Blast from the perspective of the Danish team, and I asked him about it from his perspective, and he said, you know what? I don't want to remember that, but I can't ever forget that. And said, I really, from the moment we got on the plane, I talked to my team about winning this event. That's what we were going to do, and we were going to bring home a better trophy to put in my library next to my other trophy. And it's just unbelievable that he was able to carry through on that through this weekend.
Simon, it's interesting that, of course, everyone arrives at the World Magic Cup saying, oh, we want to win it. Everyone wants to win, of course they do. But it was noticeable once we got Greece through to the final, and then it was Belgium, Italy waiting for the other semi. Those three teams throughout the weekend, we've all anecdotally on coverage, we've heard those teams talk about, yeah, I'm going to win. We're going to win the whole thing. And it's not just bravado, it's part of the mission. And sometimes, of course, the cards are more important than a positive mental attitude, but it sure does help when you're under the gun because it's part of your own self-narrative that you're going to find the way.
Yes, and Belgium entered as somewhat of an underdog because we didn't know just how strong they were. Italy arrived as the reigning champions. Of course, they had high expectations. I think the semi-finals between those two teams was amazing. There was just really high-level magic, and ultimately, I have to say, I had Belgium on my notepad to win it all after they had beaten Italy.
Yeah. Luis, from your perspective, just give us a word. Again, it's about countries and teams, but a word for the individual player on Belgium who at the end was the last player still playing. Jerome Bastogne, kind of feel like we've potentially seen a new star this weekend.
It was incredible watching him play. He won some very complicated games with an already very complicated deck, and watching him play the Goryo's Vengeance deck was amazing.
Just to fill you in on what's coming your way over the next little while here at the World Magic Cup, we're going to be heading down to the feature match area to see the trophy presentation. BDM will be out on the floor with the winners. You'll hear from Bill Chronopoulos, you'll hear from Petros Tsiodis, Panagiotis Papadopoulos, and the coach, Nicholas Kaponis. So, of course, he didn't turn a card sideways today, but that doesn't mean he wasn't part of each and every one of those untapped steps and draws and mains and combats, because it is a four-player event this all the way through. So you'll hear from them, and we'll wrap up our weekend with card of the weekend, the match of the weekend, and we'll give you our magic moments before we wrap things up here. But we are waiting on that award ceremony. So before we get to that, I want to go back to the start of the tournament, and BDM, we rather sort of drew the short straw in, the three of us trying to navigate our way through Kaladesh Sealed, which for 12 boosters is a really tough exercise, and all the teams did it.
It's a really tough exercise, but it's a tough exercise in culling down a lot of cards to a few cards, and the teams that were able to really build synergistic and powerful decks were, on display this weekend.
They certainly were. So I'm glad to tell